Spain and Netherlands will withdraw from Eurovision 2026 if Israel are present. We've also got some updates from the UK and Germany, two of the big five. We've got lots of national final news as well, and also some good news about Albania. We need a Eurovision 2026 news update. Let's kiki. Hi, my name is Tom. I'm an Irish Eurovision analyst, and you can find all of this stuff on my Eurovision channel. So first story is about Spain. Their board of directors of RTVE, which is the Spanish broadcaster, has passed a proposal saying that Spain will not take part in Eurovision 2026 if Israel is there. 10 members voted in favour, 4 voted against, and 1 member abstained. So this is really, really huge news. Spain is obviously one of the big 5. It's the 5th biggest country in terms of population in Eurovision. But yeah, one of the things that people were thinking was if Germany were to threaten to withdraw, which is just a rumour, we're going to talk about that later, Spain could be a counterbalance to that. So BBU are looking at the numbers saying we can't afford to lose one of the big 5. Well, they're definitely going to lose one of the big 5 if they keep Israel in the competition. So this followed a lot of protests during the La Vuelta cycling competition. Some towns and cities in Spain were actually stopping the race to protest against the Israeli team taking part. And we have Eurorincon here reporting that RTV paid €334,000 in participation fees, which is much more than the non-Big 5 countries who pay roughly around 100,000. And they also contributed 19.2 million viewers. Obviously, we know that Spain is one of the most passionate countries about Eurovision. Germany has a bigger population, but I think Spain has more participation from the entire country. And also we know that Ana Maria Bordas currently is the chair of the reference group. But my understanding is more that I don't think that she's making these decisions unilaterally. She's going to be doing what the broadcaster asks her to do, which we've seen so far is to push for Israel to be removed. Okay, so following up on that, we also had news from the Dutch broadcaster. I always say the name wrong, Avrotros. Am I getting better at saying it Dutchies? Tell me down below. Let's read out this statement. Avrotros links Eurovision 2026 participation to core values. Human suffering, the suppression of press freedom and political interference are at odds with the values of public broadcasting. Interesting thing here is that we've seen some of the people in the EB saying this isn't a competition of countries, it's a competition of broadcasters, which I think is such a flimsy argument. But it's nice to see that some of these broadcasters are specifically addressing that, in the sense that if you want to make this about broadcasters, let's talk about how they're suppressing freedom of speech. They won't let journalists in. They're killing journalists. In recent months, Avrotros has engaged in regular consultations with the EBU and other European public broadcasters regarding the future and nature of the Eurovision Song Contest. These discussions have also given extensive consideration to whether Israel can be represented under the current circumstances. The Eurovision Song Contest was founded in 1956 to keep people together after a period of deep division and war. Since its inception 70 years ago, music has been at the heart of the contest as a unifying force with peace, equality and respect as its core values. What is the contest meant to stand for? Avrotros can no longer justify Israel's participation in the current situation, given the ongoing and severe human suffering in Gaza. The broadcaster also expresses deep concern about the serious erosion of press freedom, so specifically addressing this broadcaster aspect, the deliberate exclusion of independent international reporting, and the many casualties among journalists. In addition, there is proven evidence of interference by the Israeli government during the most recent edition of the Eurovision Song Contest, in which the event was used as a political instrument. So really cool that Avrotros are specifically calling out this total and utter abuse of the contest. This runs counter to the apolitical nature of the contest. These circumstances are incompatible with the values represented by Avrotros as a public broadcaster. Yet one of the most common thing I see from pro-Israelis is stop making the contest political. The person who made the contest the most political was Israel. They literally did every single thing in their power to politicize as much as possible, writing a song about October 7th in 2024, sending an October 7th survivor in 2025 so they could circumvent the restrictions that were placed on them on the lyric, and then doing this gigantic advertising campaign. They literally did everything possible to politicize it and score points as much as possible. So Israel's the one who's made this as political as possible, so it just doesn't work as a counter-argument. The broadcaster has therefore decided that participation by Avrotros in the Eurovision Song Contest 2026 will not be possible as long as Israel is admitted by the EBU. Should the EBU decide not to admit Israel, Avrotros will gladly take part next year. Pending that decision, all preparations for the time being continue as planned. So they're still doing their process of looking for the song and everything, but they're giving a very concise ultimatum. We won't be there if Israel is there. So what is the relevance of this? Well, Netherlands is the 6th biggest contributor financially, I believe. Also population-wise, it's 8th in the contest. 6th and 7th is Poland and Ukraine. And also there's a huge amount of interest in the Netherlands as well. So having a big population, but also a lot of them are actually watching the contest. Dutch people are incredibly passionate about Eurovision. And we know that there's been a rockiness between the EBU and the Netherlands after what happened with Joost in 2024. So this is really, really wonderful from Avrotros, standing up for their values, being very specific as well, not beating around the bush, calling out the thing about the journalists and the vote manipulation as well. And speaking of that vote manipulation, we have a post here from AC Gabe. New analysis of Google's Ad Transparency Center shows YouTube adverts promoting Israel's 2025 Eurovision entry were viewed 68 million times in the EU plus Norway plus Iceland participating countries alone. This doesn't even include the UK, Switzerland, and Ukraine and several other markets. So the actual number would be even bigger. I assume then they couldn't get the data for those countries. So this is just another example of this absolute and utter abuse. There's no specific rules saying that you can't do this. I think the EBU just assumed that most broadcasters in countries had enough integrity and decency to not do this, that they didn't even have to write the rule. I'm really, really glad that Avrotros specifically brought up this topic. And then the second post here, in total, the Israeli government advertising agency placed 404 adverts across all 37 participating countries. Based on this data, the total number, including the other non-EU participants, is likely to exceed 80 million. The data was made public on August 15th in line with EU law. So I know that some people are looking at this saying that they think that ads don't have that much of an effect. This for me is a dog whistle to, we see a lot of support for Israel right now on the right and the far right, who probably aren't watching Eurovision, but they're going to get this ad and just say, oh, I'm going to own the libs, show my support and vote 20 times. And the ads are specifically saying vote 20 times. There's a clear message here. So this is gaming of the system. It's very, very political. It's not in the spirit of the contest at all. And it just completely disrupts any faith that people have in the televote system. Israel's televote was not the sign of a silent majority. It was a loud minority who were told to vote 20 times, abuse this televote system to score PR points for Israel so that they could whitewash their war crimes in Gaza. Okay, let's next go to a statement from Germany. So this is from Callum Rowe, who's from the Eurotrip podcast. In a statement issued to the Eurotrip podcast on behalf of ARD, German broadcaster SWR, who I believe is taking over running German's entry this year, confirms the broadcaster supports the consultation process and decisions to be made by the EBU in relation to Israel's participation. So this is interesting because there's been rumors, there's been absolutely nothing confirmed yet that Germany would withdraw if Israel were kicked out. But we've had absolutely nothing official yet. Now, this statement to me, it seems to be that they're saying that they'll respect the decision of the EBU. Now, what's going on behind closed doors could be totally different. They could be trying to sway the vote. They could be saying, actually, we're going to withdraw. They could be threatening other things. We don't know. But I have to admit, this statement does imply to me that maybe they're not threatening to do that anymore. Just because they potentially did in 24 and 25, which weren't super officially confirmed, doesn't mean that they're going to do that this year. Maybe they've had enough. Maybe they can see that the tide is turning and more people want them out, so they're just not going to fight it. So for me, this statement is not more about what they're saying. It's about what they're not saying. They're not officially saying we are going to withdraw. Despite that, the BBC, when covering this, said that both Germany and Italy are going to withdraw officially, just showing you how some of the mainstream media are just not researching this at all. BBC is meant to be quite a reputable news broadcaster, but it just shows how lax even they can be with their research. No official threats of withdrawal from either Germany or Italy. Okay, next up, let's go to a post from Channel Besties Eurovision. They're talking about the BBC General Director, Tim Davie, who said the corporation will make a decision on whether it will be involved. Speaking on the media show on BBC 4, he said, I'm not even going to read it out. This is the most nothing statement I've ever read in my life. It says absolutely nothing whatsoever. It's basically saying the EBU's doing their research. We'll listen to them and make a decision. It's a nothing statement. But similar to Germany, there's no threat here saying we don't want them kicked out or we're going to leave. So again, UK was rumored to be one of the countries in 2024 who threatened to leave if Israel was kicked out. Not official, rumor, but I have heard that from multiple sources, so I do think there's a possible thread of truth to it. But this statement to me, again, similar to Germany, does not sound like a country that is planning to withdraw imminently if Israel's kicked out. I do think that is one of the big considerations for the EBU. They'll be weighing up what's the situation of the big five, who are the biggest contributors to the finances of the contest. Spain are definitely leaving, and at this point in time, we don't have anyone confirmed who will leave if Israel's kicked out. So the scales is currently tipped in Spain's favor with official information that we have. Okay, we have a statement here from DR, the Danish broadcasters. They will not withdraw from Eurovision 2026. To be honest, this first page is like a whole load of nothing. And then this second page, this line here, ESC must be preserved as an apolitical community. Well, if you want that, kick out Israel, because they're the ones making the contest so incredibly political by abusing it maximally. But yeah, generally this statement is a whole load of nothing. Not super surprising from the country that bought you DMGP. Then they made some further comments and clarification saying they may withdraw if other countries do the same. They do not view participation as a sign of support for Israeli actions, but support for European cross-cultural community. And they view it as a non-political event. So yeah, just like DR giving spineless vibes. But DR does not represent all Danes. We have some epic Danes as well. Emily de Forest and Jürgen Olsen. So both Eurovision winners for Denmark both believe that Israel should be removed. And now, of course, there are plenty of other Danish people who also want that. The broadcasters don't always represent what a lot of people think. Politicians and broadcasters used to care about what the people thought in the past, but not anymore. Okay, we have news from Poland. The Polish Minister of Culture believes they should not participate in Eurovision with Israel. This is my personal opinion, not as a minister, but as a person who knows that this could spark a debate with TVP, but generally I haven't heard too much from Poland about the issue. We also have some news from UEFA. So UEFA's executive committee is expected to vote on Tuesday on whether to suspend Israel's national team and clubs from all European competitions. Qatar is reportedly leading a major push to bring the motion to a vote, pressuring UEFA members over the past week to secure a majority. Only 2 or 3 countries currently oppose the move, with most favouring Israel's removal. And as a follow-on to that, Spain also saying that they've proposed that the national team might not go to the World Cup 2026 if Israel qualify. In case you don't know, the World Cup is happening in America next year. So what's the relevance of this to Eurovision? Well, the UEFA is obviously much bigger, much more countries, much more international organization. I said repeatedly on this channel that I don't think the EBU wants to be the first to remove Israel from a contest. I think when we saw with Russia that they'd already been removed from the Olympics, removed from football tournaments, they've been removed from Wimbledon. So there'd already been a precedence for it. There's no precedence for Israel being kicked out yet. I don't think the EBU wants to be the first. So this is quite big news, because if the UEFA does vote on Tuesday to kick Israel out of the World Cup qualifiers, I think the EBU would follow very quickly afterwards. I think that's the smokescreen that they would like to hide behind to not draw too much attention to them. I think there'd be way more news stories about UEFA because it's much bigger internationally, has way more coverage, whereas Eurovision's obviously only in Europe. So I think if you ever vote out Israel on Tuesday, I think it's possible that the EBU will vote them out even before that official vote that was meant to happen on December 5th and 6th. Okay, let's talk about something else. Obviously, this is super relevant, but it's also kind of exhausting. We have some more news from ESC Gabe. He's become a little bit of a behind-the-scenes reporter. Multiple sources confirmed the executive supervisor role at the Eurovision Song Contest will not be returning. The responsibilities will be split into other existing and new roles. So in case you don't know, one of the conditions to get the Netherlands back, and I think probably to assuade other countries as well, was this new ESC director role, currently filled by Martin Green, which was a role that was above Martin Osterdahl, who was the executive supervisor. That's what we had at the 2025 contest. We know that Martin is leaving now, so it appears he's not going to be replaced. So it actually sounds like they brought in Martin Green to replace Martin Osterdahl without firing him. It kind of sounds like that. So there's no more executive supervisor. We have the ESC director instead. It basically sounds like they didn't want to pay Martin Osterdahl redundancy, so they brought in Martin Green above him. When Martin Osterdahl's contract expired, they got rid of him. Martin Green has come in and basically taking Martin Osterdahl's role, but it has a new name now. So that's what happened. So yeah, who are we going to cut to say that the results are ready and they've been tabulated and everything's okay? Are we going to cut to Martin Green? Okay, we have news being reported from Eurovision Turkey. Roland Weissman, General Director of Austria's state channel ORF, has announced that they have calculated the cost of Eurovision to be around 16 million euro, and work in the arena will begin no later than March 30th. 16 million sounds a little bit, I don't know if that's the total or just what ORF are paying. But usually Eurovision sits in the kind of like 20 to 30 million cost. So I assume that maybe the city of Vienna is contributing some money as well. We have an update about Celine Dion. She wasn't going to perform in Eurovision 2025 ever. Apparently, she was not in Basel. She did not ever attend, perform or present at the event. So this was a news story running a couple of weeks ago that she was going to perform, but she was too ill to do so. This is not true. Fake news. She wasn't even in Basel. She was never going to go. Okay, let's get some news about which countries are going to be participating in Eurovision 2026. And we have an update on Albania. In my last news episode, I spoke about how they're having some financial woes in the same vein as Bosnia-Herzegovina, but for different reasons. Apparently, RTSH has agreed a debt payment plan with the EBU, ensuring that they can participate in Eurovision. So it sounds like this lady, Eni Vasili, has successfully renegotiated their debt agreement with the EBU, and they're going to pay them back in installments over the next few years. So really, really happy about this. Love Albania in the contest. They're on a little bit of a momentum uptick right now. So we want to see, can they convert that into another wonderful result? I wonder, would the EBU be as open to debt plans if there wasn't all this risk of people pulling out? Because this does seem a little bit different to what happened with other countries who've had debt problems in the past, but maybe EBU has turned a page. Okay, next up we have some news from North Macedonia. Their broadcaster MRT has published its proposed work plan for 2026. MRT's participation in Eurovision is a matter for which MRT has not yet made a final decision. The reasons for this are multifaceted. The need for a careful assessment of production and financial possibilities, consideration of the concept for selecting the representative and the performance strategy, as well as the analysis of previous experiences. God, that's a lot of fluffy words. The editorial board of MRT will consider all of these factors and will make the best decision in accordance with the interests of the public service, the cultural promotion of the country, and expectations of the audience. So basically, they're thinking about it. They're looking at everyone. You could just said, we're thinking about it, babe. Just make it short and sweet. Why do these statements all have to be so long and wordy? So yeah, they're thinking about it. They're definitely going to be in Junior Eurovision. They're weighing up whether it's worth it. I think they should just look at what is about, what songs and artists are willing to go. Do they have a really, really solid package? And just make a decision based off of that. Maybe that's what they're saying amongst all of these words, but I think that's what they should do every year. Open up submissions, look at what you got. Do you have someone who can get a little bit of sponsorship and funding with a really clear concept that's got a really good chance to qualify? If yes, go. If not, skip and come next year. I think that's what they should do. I think that's what several of the countries with financial difficulties should do, is play it by ear. So who knows if we'll see a North Macedonia back, but I'm not expecting it. Let's go to national final news. First up, we have some super duper exciting news about Eesti Laul. Submissions are open and they close on October 20th. So get your song in now if you're Estonian. And the pre-jury will pick 12 finalists who will compete on February 14th. More delicious Valentine's Day fun for us. Valentine's Day is going to be popping this year. But big news there is that we're only going to have a final, it sounds like. So no semi-finals. In case you don't know, Eesti Laul used to be 2 semi-finals and then a final. And then the last 2 years, I think, we've had big ass single semi-final into a final. So a little bit sad that we're losing Eesti Laul semi-finals. I believe that this is a financial issue in the same vein as NRK from Norway, who've also had to get rid of semi-finals recently due to costs. Some more news here from ESC Discord saying that artists are going to be revealed no later than the 7th of November. That is around 6 weeks away. Excitement.com. And songs are going to be released no later than the 4th of December. That is 10 weeks away. So exciting. Within the next 10 weeks, we're getting our first songs of the Eurovision 2026 season. Of course, I'm going to do a reaction video to that. Eesti Laul is usually one of my first, if not the first, national final reaction video I do. There's going to be 12 songs, which is really, really nice for me to edit. That's a plus side of this, because usually you have to listen to like 25 songs. Only 12 this year. What a super fun way to start the 2026 season. Make sure you subscribe so you do not miss my Estonia Eesti Laul national final reaction video to kick off the 2026 season. Okay, more news about Greece. ERT has opened submissions for Ethnikos Telikos, which is going into its 2nd year. The deadline is 2nd November. The jury is going to choose up to 28 songs and 4 reserves. So we're going to have 2 semifinals, which are 100% televoting, and 7 qualifiers per semifinal. So 14 songs into the final. The final is going to be 50% televoting, 25% international jury, and 25% Greek jury, which is the same split as last year. So the semi-finals are new. They're 100% televoting, which is very interesting. That's a similar thing to what Melfest does, although they have a slightly older system. It is still all televote in the semis. But yeah, 28 songs. There seems to be this obsession with gigantic national finals in Southeast Europe. Festival of Kungas is like, last year was 30 or so. PZE is 28. Croatia's is 24. Greece now has one of 28. Can we have an intervention in countries in Southeast Europe? You don't need to be so big. We can just go a little bit smaller. Let's set a cap at 20. Do you know what? It's great to have lots of songs. Just as someone who reacts to it, it's a nightmare to edit. So I'm coming at this from a very selfish place. But yeah, it's a lot of songs, and it kind of waters down the national final, I think, a little bit. Like, for example, Festival of Kungas last year was a wonderful national final that had so much fluff and extras on it. And they did cut out a lot of that when you went into the final. But yeah, it doesn't need to be so big. We have some news from RTP, the Portuguese broadcaster. They've revealed the format for Festival of Canção. 16 songs participating, which is the normal number. 8 invited composers, 6 from public submissions, 1 composer invited by last year's winner, Napa, which is a super cool, fun thing, and 1 from Prova de Acesso online voting. So in case you don't know, Festival de Canção is quite an interesting system in that they invite people to submit a song. So they contact people and say, we'd like you to submit a song. And that makes up a majority of the songs that are in. They also have an open submission as well, and they get a couple of entries from that. I actually went through this before and looked at were more of the winners from the invitations or the open submission. I think more winners come from invitation, but maybe someone Portuguese will correct me down below. Submissions are open until November 30th. There'll be 2 semi-finals and a final. 5 acts qualify per semi, so 10 in the final. Voting method is the same as last year. Online voted, adding next to phone voting as part of televoting for the semi-finals and finals. So I believe this is a new thing that they're bringing in online voting. And then there's also going to be this new Prova de Acesso where you can vote on 5 artists. Now, these aren't songs, they're artists. And then whoever wins that vote will create a song for RTP. So really, really fun, innovative ways in trying to promote music in the country. This is really nice because it really does feel like they're reaching out to so many different musicians in the country and saying, hey, let's come together. This is a music festival. And just thinking of all these different ways to inspire people to create music. So really, really innovative and interesting. Again, we have some news from Serbia. RTS has opened submissions for Pesma za Eurovision. The competition's result will remain 50-50 split, with submissions closing on 10th of November. Very interesting to see how many people are going to apply and who's going to want to apply with everything that went on with PZ last year. I'm expecting a dip in quality. I'm expecting less submissions. I think many artists won't want to associate themselves with the contest after Oliveira's been kicked out, and basically the contest now has been taken over by pro-government elements. So it looks like it's going to be pretty messy this year for Serbia and PZE. Again, we've got news from Germany, and Jenny is saying that the war is over because there's no more rap at the Eurovision Song Contest. Apparently, the German national final will not have Stefan Raab in it this year. In fairness, he promised that. He said, if I don't win the contest for Germany in 2025, I will not be in the system for 2026. So he's delivering on his promise. We have the host cities and dates for Melodifestivalen in Sweden's national final: Linköping, Gothenburg, Kristianstad, Malmö, and Sundsvall, with the final in Stockholm. And apparently, I think this is the first time they've had a semi-final in January since 2002. I believe. So usually it starts in February, a little bit earlier this year. Might just be how the calendar's falling. But yes, we have another 5 semi-finals and a final for Melodifestivalen. Of course, I'm going to be covering all of those. I cover Melodifestivalen every single year because it's one of my favorite national finals. Okay, so that's all of the Eurovision news from the last week. What did you think? Leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Thank you to those who've been supporting on PayPal and Buy Me Coffee. If you want to support the channel, leave a QR code for you here and a link in the description. And of course, thank you to my wonderful patrons who keep the channel going in the off season. Their support is absolutely vital. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in another Eurovision news update very soon. Goodbye.